All right. So hi everybody. Thanks for coming. Um, my name is Seif Sekalala. I do have a slide, an about me slide, but just in the meantime, um, this is my name. Pronunciation is Seif. First name Seif, like a safe for your jewels. Last name Sekalala, which for some reason everybody always tends to leave out the last set of LAs. Everybody usually goes with Sekala. I don't know why, but anyway, so that's my name. And about this talk, this talk is the main purpose of the talk is for me to share a key lesson I've learned over the past several years in various roles. So the plan was originally the plan had been or was for me to be a full-time professor or a social scientist. I still am a social scientist in the sense of like I do put out research. I do a good amount of research, but I'm not a full-time professor. I'm a lover of learning as well. I'm just very very passionate about it. In fact, one of the resources I'm going to share in the last page up here, talks about my love of learning. I'm also neurodiverse, and I don't have to give details about what I mean, like neurodiversity. Some of us familiar with it. I don't know if this is my first time like Codementor thingy. The setup is a little, the UX is different, but I don't know if you can do hands. Do they let us do hands? But neurodiversity is basically is just an umbrella term that means there's some folks whose brains aren't like most people's brains, and so this includes things like autism, mental health, various mental health illnesses, and all that. And so I don't have to kind of get into detail of it, but just I happen to be a neurodiverse individual, and I am also a mental health worker in training. Um, this came to me little by little. The realization came to me little by little in terms of what, who best to help folks with mental illnesses than someone who's neurodiverse myself. And so those are some tough lessons I learned over time that inspired me to get into mental health. And so I'm in training to be a therapist. Hopefully 2-3 years from now I'll have my license. Welcome everybody that just came in. We encourage cameras to be on just to help us be more interactive. And I think I'm also going to encourage you all to unmute yourself from time to time. Like for instance, like right now, everything I'm just saying, like during the presentation, you can maybe like we can just you can let me get through the slides. But for right now, I just don't like boring my audience, and so feel free to just kind of like unmute yourself, say something, and I don't know. But so the talk I'm giving is can be summarized via the metaphor, using the metaphor of this fable. I believe the name of the person that wrote these way back in the day, their name is Aesop. Aesop. If anybody can correct me, Aesop, or that person. Okay, and it's a famous kids story. Depending on where you grew up, I grew up in Africa, but I know of the story. We're gonna get into it later, and the contents of the talk are basically to uh, draw out these two personas: the tortoise being the slow learner, and the hare being the fast learner. Okay, and so there's two main parts of the talk. Number one, how can you tell? How do you tell if you're a tortoise, meaning a slow learner, or a hare, a quick learner? All right. And then the last two parts, number two, basically how to embrace yourself as a slow learner, not to like feel, be all, be all. I'm trying to like use like a slang word that's not, because I don't want to say you don't want to like make yourself just be all oh my god, I'm a slow learner. Just how do you get how do you motivate yourself basically? And number three is related to that: how to improve your thinking and the pursuit of excellence. So let me just go through the slides first of all. The about me slide, there's not much on there apart from just for me to maybe, oh, okay, just as soon as it loads. All right, there it is. Uh, just not much on here. Y'all have already read this, I believe, on the Codementor page. But I do plug my LinkedIn. I'm somewhat of a somebody just unmute yourself and tell me here the word buff. You've heard it used like history buff or like I don't know. You can say what like history or computer buff or something. Can you use it for LinkedIn? Can you say I'm a LinkedIn buff? Anyway, but let's connect on there if you're on LinkedIn. I tend to use it a lot. All right, and then just go through the rest of the parts of the presentation website. The meat, so to speak, the meat and potatoes, um, is the presentation, and so there's that slide up there. We'll get to that in a bit. Now, finally, before I get to the interactive Q&A, interactive activity in the Q&A, which will be the very last part, I will just show you briefly the resources, some of the resources that I put together to kind of just, to help you, to help demonstrate a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about. First is the Google Drive. There's this Google Drive I've like been adding to it over a long period of time. A bunch of different resources for data science and coding. Okay, and I'll keep adding to it depending on if folks want me to. GitHub. Let me not open up the GitHub just now, but and then my book on self communication and neurodiversity. All right. So those are the three here. Now let's look at the interactive Q&A, interactive activity, and the especially the Q&A. That's obvious, I would think. Elizabeth, I think it was you that like unmuted yourself earlier and said something. Can I just get some sound checks? I just want to make sure that like on your end, the different folks, that everybody can unmute yourselves and just pitch in if you have to. Pretty please. So just come on, can I get a couple of volunteers, unmute yourself and just say testing, testing or something, or just hello, perhaps.
Hello.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you so much. All right, I'm just gonna, right, yeah, because I'm gonna assume that, like, Elizabeth, can you,
Yeah.
wait, there's another Elizabeth. There's another Elizabeth on my screen actually. So anyway, I'm just hoping that all you all can. All right, hi there. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone.
All right.
My name is Elizabeth. I see that the other Elizabeth is from San Diego. Hi. I'm from Puerto Rico. I don't know if this is the time to present ourselves. Was there a question?
So there wasn't a time planned in for like self intros, but towards the end, I can work something in. All right. So for the interactive activity, here's what I have for you all. And let me expand my font just so you can see better. Huh? So the way those talks go, I do my best not to bore my audience. Yeah. And as we go through the talk, so let me first show you down here. You have pseudocode. Those of us on here on this talk are at different levels of our learning when it comes to like software development. But I think we all know what pseudocode is, and this is Python. This is just a basic. This is like I believe. In Python, it's called a list, or is it an array? I don't want to mix it up. JavaScript as an array, so I think, yeah. So anyway, but this is the basic formats in terms of how you build a list or an array in either Python or JavaScript. And so up here, you have some of the main points I'm going to be giving learning methods. And so as we go through it, through the presentation, just best to if you want to follow along, depends on you really. Some folks can multitask, but at the end we'll maybe, I was thinking of doing a sweepstakes, but I don't know, like you folks are very smart. I might end up losing a lot of money if we do that. All right, so going all the way back, and we'll just get straight to the presentation from here. All right, and I'm just gonna stay within the screen. I'll pop out at only one time. So this is the title of the talk, and that's, I believe, self-explanatory. By the way, if I'm going too fast at some point, if I trip over words, if I mispronounce words, like there's something you don't catch, I beg you, please unmute yourself and tell me to slow down or to maybe there's something you didn't catch. All right. So first, the inspiration of the talk. So the talk, I believe, goes something along these lines. Please don't be mad at me if I butcher it somehow, but there's these two buddies, yeah, the tortoise and the hare, right? The hare is oh so proud of himself, like very confident in his abilities to run, to like in terms of like he knows that he's faster than the tortoise. Poor tortoise has to put up with like the taunts all the time, hey, look at you, you're slow. If we race, I can like beat you. And so one time the tortoise gets tired of hearing all that and says, you know what? Let's do a marathon. You want to do a marathon? And the hare is like, yeah, sure, of course, why not? And then they do a marathon. Somewhere, I guess, the hare got way, like way ahead in the route. They look back, or they look back. I don't know if it was their gender or whatever. And they're like, you know what? I got this. Let me just take a little nap. He'll never catch up with me. And then the tortoise lose, or rather the hare. Next thing you know, the tortoise, the hare wakes up, and the tortoise has won. And so that's the story there. But again, as I mentioned earlier, it's just a general categorization of like uh, slow learners. That's the tortoises among us, and then the hares are the quick learners. All right. And I'm about to give you a disclaimer in that regard, so just bear with me here. Okay. But before I give you the disclaimer, let's try to figure this out. How do you tell? So how can I tell if I'm a tortoise or a hare? Okay. Um, this is the part where can anybody like just pipe in and like maybe from primary school you realize you're a fast learner, but maybe some subjects, and because we're gonna get into this a little bit in the next slide. So does anybody know themselves for coding maybe or for other subjects to be a quick learner? I'm just trying to get like a quick, just one example. Um, Me, like I'm very good at language arts, for instance. I'm very good at languages. Anybody good at like math or something? Anyway, oh, looks like everybody's shy, so never mind. Um, so this was a very good. As I was planning this talk, this stood out to me. I remembered this. A few years ago, it went viral. This gentleman, I believe, is a NASA engineer. Okay, and he actually wrote this tweet as a reply to someone else's. It was some kind of debate about learning and about grades and stuff, right? Are grades that important? So here's what it says. It says, I got a 2.4 GPA my first semester in college, thought maybe I wasn't cut off for engineering. And then today, he has landed 2 spacecraft on Mars. He's designing one for the moon, and he goes, STEM is hard for everybody. Um, grades, at the end of the day, grades don't matter as much as persistence. What word does he use? Persistence, yes, and curiosity is what it said. So that really stayed with me from that tweet. Now, the disclaimers here that I promised earlier. Number one, first of all, as a social scientist and as someone that is in training to be a therapist, there's what we call psychosocial phenomena, biological, psychological, and societal phenomena, right? So obviously, for instance, you might be born with like some kind of condition where your brain doesn't function like most of us. All right, maybe for some reason there's like some kind of like genetic something that causes you not to be able to be good with words, for instance, right? So that's the biological, and then psychological. Yeah, this is like it could be, for instance, genetics in terms of like mental health, right? If many families you have, like the mom and dad or cousins, somehow they have mental illness in their family, it tends to, like so you yourself might have it, or just temperament, for instance, and then societal as well. And in particular, for the societal folks, we need to realize that poverty has a huge effect on learning. You know, when you think about it, the research has been done, but you don't need to I mean, this is intuitive enough when you think about it. How a kid in school, or an adult or a child, let's say an adult, you're in school learning English, for instance, all right, English as a second language, or you're a child in school learning math, English, fill in the blank, whatever. Are you gonna concentrate that well when you have hunger pains? Think about it, right? Not really. That's yeah, no. Number one. The second disclaimer is this: yes, you can classify learners into those two broad categories of tortoises and hares, fast learners and slow learners, right? But of course, you have to look at it as a phenomenon of a spectrum phenomenon, where like in the middle there's some folks that were, I mean, I guess is, if you believe in the concept of IQ is very controversial, but like, when you look at IQs, you have that bell curved shape, you know, layout where, some of us, there's what's called an average IQ, an average IQ, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so some way to think about the tortoises and the hares. And then finally, number three, this is very, very important here. At one point or another, when I asked earlier, remember I was trying to purge y'all to like kind of share if you think you're a tortoise or a hare for some specific subject or some specific field. At one point or another, my assertion is, I believe that you will find yourself, many of us, most or many of us will find ourselves being tortoises and or hares at different points in time. Okay, so that is my assertion right there. And so, if you find yourself as a tortoise, what do you then do to motivate yourself? Is the question. All right. Now, let me help you all out a little bit. Remember, this is like a helpful reminder. If those of you that might be, oops, sorry about that. Those of you that might be following along for the interactive activity, you might want to start paying attention right here. Okay, so I'm just being helpful there. And who knows, I might still do the sweepstakes for like a Starbucks gift card or something, but we'll see. All right, so anyway. So self-acceptance, so how do you accept yourself and motivate yourself? And the first one that I came up with is mindfulness and patience. And mindfulness is such a broad term, has to do with I think usually it's talked about in the context of like Eastern religions, Buddhism and Hinduism and that kind of thing. But basically, it means just self-awareness and just keeping track of your own thoughts, feelings, emotions, right? For me, I really like the part where the most helpful thing to me about mindfulness, when I'm thinking about it, is breathing, watching my breathing, taking those slow, deep breaths. So every day I try to do like a session where, let me just rip this off the wall. I try to do a session whereby like I do some deep breathing. Like I sit down for like 10, 15, 20 minutes and try to do some deep breathing exercises before I start my work. I just try to center myself. But you can do it throughout the day. I also have prayer beads here. This one's a Muslim, this is I'm not Muslim, but my friend is Muslim, but she gave me these. But Buddhists have them as well, I believe. And I also use them to like just watch my breathing. And then patience as well, that's obvious, including during sanity checks. All right? Anybody can relate to this? I don't know if you guys have that hand feature. Looks like you don't, but can anybody just unmute yourself and just, this week you've been coding this week, and like or you can think of like a particularly bad incident where you had to debug. Anybody can anybody share real quick? You're debugging and it's like, oh my god, what am I doing wrong? Elizabeth, I like how your facial expressions are, it's communicating like that you can relate. Oh, Walter, looks like my two buddies that are speaking up, Elizabeth and Walter. Can anybody relate to debugging, folks? I mean, I'm gonna keep quiet so I can answer that. No, Walter or Elizabeth. All right, but basically, those you have that. What am I doing wrong? Like, right? Like you think everything is typed up very well, and then eventually you know how to do it. Many ways to do it. Look at the error messages you're getting, or gray out some code, do a print statement, and see. Like that will help you see maybe eventually where you went wrong, et cetera, et cetera. That's the first step identified. The next one is repetition and practice. For me, for instance, algorithms tend to be some of my. I feel like my personal opinion is that we as developers, many of us don't appreciate enough uh, algorithms, like the usefulness of algorithms. And so for me, I found that over time, to give you an example, like the common ones, you have those fizzbuzz to some problem. Is one I really enjoy, the min, max, and average, doing it via JavaScript. Over time, it just works for me. Eventually get to a point where I can actually type out the whole thing, and guess what? I haven't looked, I haven't peeked, and then like the code works. That's a very good feeling. Number three is mnemonics and self tricks. Self trickery part one is how I term it. And you know, when I was in grad school for my doctoral program, I had to like memorize because of the nature of the work. I had to memorize the theorists or the methodologists that I was using to do my analysis, and I came up with something like what I came up with is Schlogelilawa, and part of that, what that meant was his names. Those were names. Those were like the first two or three letters of like the people that I was whose work that I was using. So you had Schifrin, Goffman, and this right here is like sociolinguistics for the most part. So Schifrin, Goffman, Lindy, Labov, and Waletsky, etc. Okay. But mnemonics are also a very useful thing to use. There's this book that I'm reading where the book helps us prep for the licensure exam, and he uses it a lot. But they work basically. Okay, so just solve trickery, creativity, mnemonics. Okay, that's another way to do it. The next one, Google, 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 Google. Do y'all realize how underutilized Google is for it's funny, and when I was prepping this, I was gonna say, oh, looks like I have some change my name so we can now so we can know which one of us. All right, cool. All right, no, thank you for that. I saw Elizabeth nodding vigorously. Eliz, I like that. Eliz and then Elizabeth. I saw Elizabeth like laughing, just Google, we don't realize how much power we have at our fingertips nowadays. My God, when you ask our older friends or families or whatever, they'll tell you about those days when they used to go to libraries with index cards and whatnot, and encyclopedia. Nowadays, you can just Google something, and then how like many times you go to that forum, or you're in Discord, or you're in like you go to whatever forum, and you're like, guys, can somebody help me with this, please? And then many times, and then sometimes somebody asks you, did you try Googling it? And then when you Google it, voila, it comes right up, right? All right, so enough said. I'm not even going to dwell on that too long because I think that's self-explanatory. Now, self-trickery part B. What I mean by this is we're all unique. Everybody is unique, okay? So what works for Matt and Eduardo and Sarah and Fabio, those things might not work for Julian and Vinay. Please forgive me if I'm butchering your names. Bikram and Nicole might like a certain way of working that myself and Eliz and Walter do not like. Whatever it is, figure out for you how do you learn best. For me, for instance, self-accountability. You know what I tell my students? A couple of things, two examples I can give you. I tell my students, if I haven't returned your papers, if I haven't graded your papers 2 weeks, like 1 or 2 weeks from now, everybody will get an extra 5 points. Can anybody guess? Can y'all guess? Ask me, like, if I ever had to like give those extra 5 points, I'll let you guess. The answer is no, no, it has never happened, right? And then sometimes I tell my friends, I'm like, listen, if I haven't sent you that email by XYZ time, XYZ date, then I will give you $25 for you to either like go treat yourself to lunch or for you to donate to the American Red Cross. Usually it works. Like that one, that's 90 something percent. Because the other day I had to like send um, uh, but just figure out what works for you. Do you want to reward yourself, or in terms of self accountability? How do you like to do it? My friend, they love routines. So routines, every morning they go to Starbucks. For 2 hours. They like that ambiance of Starbucks. That like the people milling around, that background noise, the music. They bang out whatever papers they're writing, or all those emails or papers, whatever they do every morning. Clockwork for 2 hours. That's what works for them. So figure out what works best for you. And the other one I have here is peer support versus solitude. In the past, I've been one of those people who, all right, let's say I have something in the chat here. Google knows it. Yeah, Google, right? In the past, I tend to be more of a pack animal. Okay, I tend to like prefer a lot of like not hand holding, but for me, like we don't have to like be pair programming, either pair programming or we can have a quiet session. Anybody use focusmate.com? You can write in the chat if you've used it. Focusmate. I tried it. I personally did not like it, but this one friend of mine swears by it. Focusmate. You just go in there and then like you just So for me, I like that camaraderie, But for you, gotta figure out which one do you prefer. Now, if you like peer support, how about you try out solitude sometimes? And if you like working alone, how about you try out the other one? You might be surprised how better you work depending on like what you're working on. Okay, so that's the other one here. And again, folks, if those of you that are taking part in the interactive activity, I hope you're like taking note of all this stuff. All right, finally, we've run out of time, so I'm not gonna like read through these so much, but actually, let me just expand it. And so what I did is I did like an informal survey. Let me just kind of again, I'm not gonna read them verbatim, but this is some of the responses I got from my friends on Discord, on the Discord servers that I'm in. Respondent one, yes, use YouTube, use Udemy, all these bootcamps, platforms. There comes the Google. Remember? Yep, there comes Google. But then this person is also saying that the best way to learn is by doing. Okay. Now I have a bit of a problem with that. We're gonna get into that in the Q&A because my entire talk is a little bit contrarian when it comes to like the whole learning by doing. But anyway, we'll get to that. Respondent number two. This might sound familiar, don't they? Maybe I haven't stressed them as much, or I haven't used those terminologies as much. Consistency, perseverance, patience. Okay? And finally, this I really love. Number three, respondent number three, I really, really like this. Take notes on paper. Oops. Oh, shoot. Oh, boy. We're not there yet. Take notes on paper. And I can show you. I have a lot to like. It's lying around. I have lots of pads lying around here, and after you take your notes on paper, and after you kind of do that, like let's say even with my algorithms, right? I like to do that. Not just algorithms, but also anybody you want to give this a try if you want. Like so, for those very simple pages, how HTML, JavaScript, and CSS you have the fancy, I'm just using the word fancy, where you have like the more complex sites where you have to have 3 separate directories or whatever or more. But what about there's like those very simple sites where all the code, all the HTML, CSS, JavaScript can go on one page. And so, yeah, use it pencil and paper, right? Opening tags and put in the basic CSS, etc., etc. It really does work. And then later on, go to your code editor and do what you gotta do. Now, This very last one is very important, and so I'm going to read through it. I mean, I cannot read verbatim through it, but I have to really try to explain it well. Crying out loud, that thing keeps popping up. Uh, Csikszentmihalyi's theory of flow. Where is it? So Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, what this theory says, the theory of flow basically, I wanted to like read it verbatim because it's that important. In the slide, I give you a link so you can like click on it yourself and go take a look. But what it basically talks about is what it describes is, anybody heard of the runner's high? Right? Is anybody a runner? I have a very active audience today, and that's tongue in cheek. I'm teasing you all. Anybody who runs or swims? Do I have any swimmers? You can type in the chat. And swimmers, runners. You guys don't go to the gym at all. I'm just teasing you. Oh, look, no, say Elizabeth. Well, all right, but how about anybody who loves to watch basketball? Basketball is a good one. So imagine, when those players are in that, it's called to be being in the zone. Like he's dribbling and it's just really the art of it is amazing, right? He's just dribbling, and then he does the dunk, and in that moment you lose sense of time, you lose sense of yourself, but in a good way. It's to me it's a form of mindfulness, right? You're engrossed so much in this one activity that you're doing. All right. The flow theory suggests that all those things happen, and I have a bunch of messages in the chat. Probably need to go to the gym, play tennis. Oh, so Vinay, you play tennis? So for you, it might happen. You might experience it playing tennis. Me, I'm a swimmer. But the point is, your level of skill has to match up with your the test that you're doing. Okay. But I'm not saying to you all to try to like tap into the theory, like the concept of flow tomorrow as coders. No. Little by little, I told you about min, max, and average, how I enjoy like doing that algorithm and all this. It takes you time to pick up those skills. Eventually, you find yourself at a point where, oh my God, there you are in a code editor, you're just banging it out. Like you're debugging, you're troubleshooting, you're doing this. And that is very exciting. Anybody knows that feeling? Anybody can share in that feeling. Or even when you write, anybody writes? My audience really, I think, is just, you guys are just working very hard to like make me feel like but I'm a writer, for instance, and and so same thing. Like sometimes like you're writing and it's just you're flowing, so to speak. All right, so this is the end of the presentation. Of course now it's not working, and so there you go. All right, so let's go back to the website now. Before we go to the Q&A, I first want to take you to the resources. So this is what I was saying before. Google Drive. So when you look at Google Drive, because that one respondent was saying to avoid tutorial hell. Y'all know what that is? Please, it looks like my audience is good at typing in the chat. So yes, please type in the chat about tutorial hell and like what you think about it, or if you know what it is. But like this is my talk is a little bit antithetical to that whole thing of decampaigning tutorial hell, because for me, I want to first really get the concepts down pat before I then build my own projects. And my GitHub is probably a good evidence, is good evidence of that right there, in terms of like, it kind of gives me away in terms of, then again, all of us, my friends keep telling me not to beat myself up, because we all have projects where, like my friend the other day called it the graveyard, the coding project graveyard, right? And so we all have, I guess, maybe that. But this just demonstrates to you like how I use my concepts of learning little by little. Some of these, by the way, so like the one I'm proud of the most is actually a real project called Flask. There it is right there, and it's an app to help people find free water and food in Philadelphia. All right, I have to wrap this up, and then this is my book on self-communication and neurodiversity. I'm not plugging it, believe it or not. Actually, I'm not. Although, if you like reading, or if you're a bit of like a scholar type, you might want to read it. Get a copy of it. All right, interactive activity. Let's see how y'all did. So, who was trying to keep up with the uh who's trying to keep up with? Oh, sorry, I have I keep the chat. See, this is different from Codementor's thing. Is UX is different from Zoom. Tutorial. You've heard of tutorial hell? Do you think it's a thing, Chantal? Do you think it's a? Do you think like? Do you think they're right? Because I've kind of betrayed the fact that I feel like I might not agree with that concept of tutorial hell. Chantal, what do you think? Like, do you think like you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I've been stuck in there before. Like I just would constantly like watch videos and things about tutorials, but I wouldn't really like focus too much on building like project or
So do you feel like that was detrimental to you? You feel like you would have learned better, maybe not focusing too much on the videos and then just building actual projects, right? Because
yeah.
that's the point. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with it, but it also might be. Let's hear from. I don't know. Like, so we're in the Q&A time anyway. But anyway, so first I want to hear who got the order here. Could somebody read me there? Did anybody do this? Oh my God, you guys did not want to like play along with me. Did anybody try this out to put this in the right order?
As in what happened first, or
No, because I was going through them. Don't they look familiar? And I've expanded. Like I'm making my font as big as possible. Like right, I was listing them. But this is the jumbled order. So did anybody try to like put them in the right order? And then I don't know if you use pseudocode or Python or Java, JS. Anybody? Okay. There's the sound of crickets now. So, all right.
Crickets.
You guys are mean. All right.
I could probably just rattle them right now.
Wait, what happened? What happened?
I did not put it in order, but I probably could attempt to rattle it off right now.
All right. Okay. So all right. Thank you.
You were missing the instructions, Seif. We
I'm sorry?
didn't know that we have to think about it.
What time did you? I think some folks can vouch for me. Does anybody remember me giving the instruction at the beginning?
Maybe because I came a little bit
A
late.
little late, yeah, because I did give the instructions. But you know what? Hey, look, yo, folks, I don't blame you. Regardless of where you are in the world, Singapore, Europe, America, it's late. My local is 10:39 p.m. So you know what? Hey, this is not a classroom. You're not doing this for grades, and so I don't blame you for doing this. But yeah, Elizabeth, be my guest. Which is which? So what's the 1 through 7? The way I read them.
Elizabeth
Okay.
or Elise?
Elizabeth, because Elizabeth is the one that said she can try.
Okay, yeah. Turtles and hares first, and then we are looking at mindfulness and sanity checks, repetition and practice. Then, did Google come next? Okay. Google, then trickery part A, trickery part B, and then concept of flow.
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right. You got the concept of flow. You got correct. Many of them you got correct, but the one that I think it tripped you up was I think turtles and hares, because this is other. You see how it says other turtles and that was towards the end, right when I was saying how other people how do other people like doing it. Anyway, so this is the Q&A part. Questions, comments. If anybody thinks that this talk was the worst ever, you're free to say that. My feelings will not be hurt. I promise. But this is Codementor encourages us to have this time for Q&A. What do y'all think? Any questions? Did that make sense? Questions, comments?
Yeah, I got a question.
Is this Liz or Elizabeth?
Elizabeth, hi.
Elizabeth, hi there.
I was wondering what happens if you're, say, a tortoise in a subject you're not particularly interested in. You have to get it right because I don't know your job or something, right? But you're not particularly interested in it, you just don't have that motivation, how would you personally get yourself motivated if you just don't have the motivation to even begin to,
Gotcha.
do
So,
repetition?
but
Yeah.
it depends. Are you at school or at work?
I suppose this would be work now.
If you're at work, hey, look it. There's a performance review coming up. First of all, they get that your boss give you a deadline, and many bosses are nice enough to where they'll let you slide or whatever, but eventually you are gonna have to deliver, right? So work is easy. I would think of school maybe as the tougher one. But so Elizabeth, to answer that, hey, Elizabeth, you know that thing that right there that keeps these lights on. Right? Anybody have any other idea? Walter, is it Walter? Yes, Walter. What do you think at work? Any other tricks? Because if it's school, I could pitch in, but like for work, I want to hear from other folks. Anybody have any advice?
I think that like sometimes when you have to do something you're not particularly interested in, one, you could find somebody else who is ecstatic about it or really enjoys it. Maybe they'll rub off on you. Another thing is if you just have to do it, make sure that you schedule something you enjoy doing after you work on it. So maybe you spend like 30 minutes on it.
Your
and then you
word
do something you
yourself. Elizabeth, are you listening to that? So if at work you have those tasks that you love, and then your boss gives you that one task that is, ugh. So what Walter is saying is, reward yourself. I really like that. That's a self-op. Like, that's one of my self-trickeries. Brian, you came on. I saw your face. Yeah, I think you tried to hide again, but you came on. Did you want to like add to the, any questions, suggestions for Elizabeth? Hi, Brian. Wondering where you're based out of, by the way. I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, good morning. Sorry, I'm joining from a different time zone, and I
Where
just
are you?
realized
Where,
our bus
where
time.
are you? Africa? What part of Africa are you?
Yeah, actually, East Africa.
Nairobi?
No, Kampala.
Kampala. Oh, I was born in
Yeah.
Kampala. Small world. I was born in Kampala, Uganda, and I was in Nairobi. So you joined us a little late, but any questions for us? Did any of this? We're talking about turtles and hares, fast learners and slow learners. And this is the Q&A time right now. So Walter, Eliz, and Walter, and anybody, Fabio, Sarah. Some folks have been so quiet, throughout the talk.
I
Matt,
have a question.
who is this?
Yes.
Eliz?
Yes.
Eliz, yes. What's the question?
For anyone that is here, have anyone here studied Python before, and how long does it take to be basic on it? Because I have a professor, I took the Java course years ago, and the professor added me on LinkedIn. Now he is the director of artificial intelligence in Pennsylvania. And since I'm from Puerto Rico, he wants to take me as a minority student to Puerto Rico to do a presentation about artificial intelligence, but I have to master Python. So
Gotcha.
does anyone know anything
Eliz,
about
just one
Python?
moment. Eliz, hey, Claire, do we get an extension? Because it's 10:45. Do we get an extent? Can we go on for a little bit longer, or do we have to? Is there a hard stop, Claire?
We can stay for a little bit longer.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Because I have an answer for you, Eliz, which you like. You're gonna like my answer, but I want to hear from some other folks first, because I have some good news for you. But let's hear from anybody else that has done Python. What do y'all think? And I think Eliz's question is it easy? How is it easy to learn it? Is the question? I hope I'm not butchering it.
How long does it take?
How long does it take to learn?
1-2 months, I will be good.
Possibly, yeah. I'd be willing to give Elise some advice.
Go on, just give her some Cliff Notes version. How long would it take her to learn it?
Maybe I would first like, is there any other programming language you've worked with?
I just finished in January a bootcamp in coding. And I'm just I'm just going to a lot of website like html.com,
Okay.
MDN, and looking for all the resources and doing like in a notebook, a step by step, everything that I have to master. Like for example, something that I printed here that has like, you know, HTML, CSS,
Yeah.
and everything that is in there. So that's my
Okay.
process so far. So get so I would say my focus right now is just nothing related programming. JavaScript will be the next one, but yeah.
Brian,
Oh,
what's your main point to her? Because like, trust me, I have good news
okay.
for her, but I want to hear from you first. Oops, my video is dead. My bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Initially, I was trying to find out her previous experience, possibly in other programming languages, and I wanted to relate and see how she could easily switch from one programming language to another. And from my understanding, it's like she's just getting into programming, and she's starting with the basics, the HTML and CSS. And yeah, to okay, in my opinion, since you're starting with the basics, it will be quite a long learning curve for you, possibly something like 2 months, something like that. But then if you had some knowledge, possibly in other programming languages, possibly, I don't know, yeah, possibly it could have been easy to switch. I don't know, but you can guide us.
Liz, I'm disagreeing with Brian. I'm sorry. Python
Yeah.
is Liz. Have you heard of that site Python for Everyone? PYE. Python for Everyone. You might want to write this down. In fact, let me put it in the chat. Python for Everyone. So just when you Google it, it's gonna come up. Python for Everyone. Liz, Python is so easy, and it's so easy, and yet it's so powerful. Oh my, guys, please, some of y'all know this. There's people in the chat that are being shy, but y'all know what I'm talking about here. Like JavaScript is the one that's really like intimidating when this guy over at Harvard CS50, C, oh my God, C just looks or even Java. Python is so easy. So no, I disagree with Brian. I say if you've coded before, you know what arrays are, you know what a variable is, you know what like basic data structures. You can learn it within a month, within less 2 weeks to a month. I honestly really do believe that if you apply yourself. That's my humble opinion. Sorry, Brian. I'm sorry.
No. Honestly, no. We need to have varying feedbacks, and actually, it's one of the reasons why I asked her has she programmed before, because if she has some previous knowledge with the basics such as the data structures and all that, and the data types, so it will be very easy for you to switch from one language to another. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, Eliz, I've put my thingy in the chat, my whatchamacallit, my LinkedIn. I'm very willing to help, and then I have a Discord group of buddies of mine, very nice guys, all over the world, Nigeria, Austria. It's a small group, but at the same time, so Python is easy to learn. Trust me, it was my first learning language, and it was so easy to learn. Check out that site, Python for Everyone. All right, I think Claire gave us an extension, but any other last questions before we break off? Brian, I'm so happy to see. Well, I'm happy to see everybody. Thank you for coming to my talk, folks. Elizabeth, thank you for your spirited. You made me feel like I was talking to myself. Liz and Elizabeth, thank you all. Chantal, thank you. Matt, Sarah, Ben, everybody that has stayed around. Let's connect. I'm on LinkedIn. But Liz, yeah. So if you Google it, it should come up. Severance, Charles Severance is over at Michigan, the University of Michigan. Just Google Python for Everyone. I believe the name is Chuck Severance or Charles Severance. It's very easy to learn, Liz, in my humble opinion. Walter, any last words for us?
Now, have a great night. Thank you so much, and thanks for the website. There's a lot of great information there that I'm gonna definitely
bookmark it. And if you guys want more resources, one thing I'm very good at is aggregating stuff. I enjoy aggregating, like putting things together. So like, if y'all want more, I have a bunch of bookmarks. I'll keep adding to that folder based on public demand. There's something in the chat real quick here. Walter, thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. All right. Thank you for coming. And I think Claire is going to end us soon. Or actually, is it? Am I the one that's supposed to end it? I'm not sure. Claire, what happens here?
I can do it.
All right. Thank you, folks. One more time.